around the time, they say, of 1,000 years ago, when the estuaries of Britain started silting up, and the estuaries of around Hull and Doggerbank and those climes that thousands of years ago during the Ice Age apparently made British Isles part of a Europe which no Brexit could ever be esteemed to be any sense, by any sensibility, were in fact the same pangs of evangelism which brought Mozart, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, to Britain to see King George III. In such revolution that here's the rub, that sees Napoleon Bonaparte going for a song. And I asked somebody the other day what made them attracted to music. And their answer to me was simply, oh, we used to sing these songs at school. And half the time, I have often wondered how it is that any time so much history or past is frankly kerfuffled, muffled from what anyone might presume to be the truth. But take the work of Reed, a member of the Royal Society, who had in 1913 done some amount of study on the submerged woodlands beneath the shores of the seas, the beaches around Britain. But it would not be so long before his theories were pronounced as to be as near truth as one could really expect to believe without having ardent proof. And so this hark as lark that is the truth about music cannot exist any more than those sleepy shores which apparently dogged the Doggerbank in different unstilted times during Roman conquest and Roman imperialism. It is much I appreciate and you understand. All is clear when you can do something. Do something, a neighbor once said to a neighbor, and it wasn't quite understood what they meant. But keep an eagle eye, as you will, open for her arrival. Not the Queen of Sheba, not Teresa, Maria Theresa, Empress of Austria. Mozart's eternal bliss and the ruler. And I hope you will have a lovely week, viewers. We have here in the studio, and I certainly am looking forward to tearing some of these myths about what is music and what is frankly unsupported noise from, shall we say, lesser instruments. But it is with sadness I renounce all these foolish quips about truth about history, and take all this lie, if you like, which lead us to have to accept that one of the finer pianos, one of the less sorrowful notes of those degraded exhibits so often seen on the net, being here offered by this pianist, Speedman, who has not, he's not unacquainted with the music of Handel, but as you will hear, and in the repairing of ancient times and less watersome modules that sang Bonaparte warrior from the myth of Waterloo, that ended in sense the Europe that might have been, and replaced it with a Europe that frankly voters you never wanted, that those now dream of a better instrument have found it in these warming sunnier climes of spring, and those estranged of solstice thought to raise. A solstice shorter ways of now, and regarding you all. Fernando Ray speaking. Thank you very much for being here. I understand you are going to give up music. The prospect of bringing many people to the forum to take part in what is part of the rich tapestry of culture which is encompassing popular music right the way through and back to the beginning of solo performers like yourself, lead me to wonder why people adopt playing piano in the first place.
Oh, well, that is easy, isn't it? That is easy. Somebody wants to play a particular tune or wants to play like somebody else, or they like the idea of how they will look at the keyboard. But what?
But in fact you are not going to be continuing this way of selling your instrument, is it?
No. I am selling the instrument because I have no interest now in performing.
I say giving up music altogether.
Oh, no, I'm not giving up music any more than Mozart, who was the seventh and last child of Maria, and Leopold. His two names, the 27th of January was the first of the St. John Christening, Wolfgangus.
Oh, yes. But when you speak to people of Mozart and you speak to them of Haydn, what do people think about?
The reality, isn't it? I was reading the history recently of a town in Lincolnshire, which was in fact the birthplace, as it were, or in fact they started achieving the register of first birth, marriages and deaths in 1555. That made me wonder what they were recording before 1555 that was so less important than it should have been by 1555.
Yes, and what are the leanings or productions which these days inspire someone to take up the piano?
I wonder. Well, I don't know, and frankly, I fail to see what anyone sees in a piano, any more than, for instance, Mozart's performance in one of those early requisitioning, shall we say, of the Elector of Frankfurt and Mainz, which was meaning that by the time that new and democratic ideas that had been flowing from revolutionary France, let's face it, into the Rhineland, you know, France used to be a cultural, didn't it? It's cultural capital. But it all has to be paid for.
Or it presumably led to the revolution.
Or it presumably. All the evidence of that argument, I suppose, is circumstantial.
The revolution.
We have to glean, don't we, from what we are told, from those births and deaths and marriages, that were eminently less, shall we say, patriotic of its Italian inventor, Bartolomeo Cristofori, who in it was a long time before 1790 invented the piano, 90 years to be precise, had produced about 9 pianos by 1709. That approximate by 1714, and the death of Queen Anne, 1717, meant that King George I was able to bring Hanoverian questions to England, which makes me wonder indeed not only why people take up the piano, but why they also think of anything to do with English
as being Englishness.
Because in fact, George I hardly spoke very much English at all.
As being Englishness.
And the fact that Mozart had not
Mozart had been dead
90 years later, but when you perceive that into the third reign of George III, the 1761 to 1820, what are we talking about, was considered an enlightened prince. Those days of Leopold, under which Mozart was suffering, quite differently the pain and sufferings of such a genius than, say, for instance, the patronisation towards George Frederick Handel,
shown particularly by George I.
Hanover in England, and then of course from 1727 to 1761 in
the reign of King George II.
In the King George II. This was a turbulent era that in a way it fostered the genius of desire. Desire. Because desire is a genius. It isn't just administered unto people to be able to like something. They have to have a reason that they feel like it.
Indeed, you are giving up the piano, and you are talking about becoming what?
Well, if you study the life of Mozart, and you look at Mozart's library, also offers an opportunity to study such questions as to what the guy studied. The inventory after decreased notes that he possessed, all 10 volumes of the, for instance, they give, and my kleine Chiffren and Sonnenfeld, produced in Vienna between 1783 and 86.
What meaning?
What meaning?
What meaning?
Was meaning that also among his books and the copies of Johann Petrus Fastenorder, das aufgefallene philosophische Jahresrat, published in 1783. Original Peter Pavarian, born 10 months after Mozart, was the composer's lodge brother. In light of Petzel's books and others like them, many attacking monastic abuses, is it possible, I wonder, to believe that Mozart subscribed to the idea proposed at the end of Così fan tutte about letting reason be our guide through life? This is the issue.
Well, I have no idea.
He may have agreed with the old philosopher, Alfonso, about the need for philosophy in all things. And in fact, if you look at Mozart's own learnings, he studied, of course, not only the cultures, by the innuendo of the life that his father was leading in the royal court of Maria Theresa of Austria, but under Leopold II, who lived only a few months beyond Mozart in 1791. His 25 years spent ruling Tuscany had transformed it into a model state by the lights of the century. But as you know, the piano was in fact, in a sense, dying as soon as it began, because Christopher had invented this thing.
People are presumably looking at on eBay, oh, do I like to have a piece of furniture?
Yet they failed to realize that the music, for instance, of George Frederick Handel was chaotically inspired of the, for instance, the trivialities of performing music upon the Thames in London, which did not do very much for the timpanists themselves in the music for the royal fireworks, when the conductor could not hear them in time, or the sound was delayed by some kind of acoustic misdemeanor. But in fact it was more proposed to the, or disposed among the prejudicial acquaintances of George II, that in fact far exceeded, didn't it, the exploiting differential, almost oblivion suffering of George III when it came to, for instance, foreign policy. You wonder what on earth he was doing for the Boston Tea Party when the guy was living as a fact as a mental recluse for the last at least 20 years, I think, of his life, from 1800 to 1820.
But you don't have to realize that you would need a queen consort.
Never mind the piano.
You would need a queen consort.
And so, what we get...
So you're giving up. You're not giving up music, but you're giving up the piano, which you've studied many years, and presumably you learnt this from your...
Mother? Oh, indeed, my mother used to sit next to me, who, much to her amazement, when I could actually play the notes before she had interpreted where they were on the keyboard, who was then unable, or shall we say, not only sympathetic and wishing she could point out the notes to me, but in her failure, in her exploits to try.
Dismally failed.
He tried, Mozart, to save many of the social reforms of his mother, Maria, and Brother Joseph, while undoing some of Joseph's mistakes.
Leopold had not died so soon.
Overshadowed by the French Revolution and the execution of King Charles, many years mirrored in that of Louis XVI in 1793. In fact, the whole of Europe was in turbulence, wasn't it? And you wonder how anybody is inspired to play a piano when you understand that some of the mistakes in European politics now, for instance Brexit, did not turn so violent in 1792. That this simmering despot, as much as the configuration that would lead to the equivocation, shall we say, of a country such as a free island, explaining to people like the Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, we don't like how you are carving up Europe. It explains really the kind of sufferings which young Mozart, really tragically undoing some of Joseph's mistakes. Mozart did not do a lot better in many ways, although if Leopold had not died so soon and European politics had not turned so violent in 1792, his moderate reforms might have been continued.
Oh yes, it's a turbulent time, isn't it, for you?
Oh yes, it's a turbulent time, isn't it, for the Emperor? Good, humane and a good, humane time, but when you look at the fact that people don't, as you say, understand Haydn as they would, for instance, Mozart, for many reasons, because one of his greatest achievements was, of course, his string quartet.
Speak to people about presumably performing Haydn, particularly as a virtuoso.
Oh yes, of course, sonatas, what have you. But you must remember that when Mozart was mentioned at his meagre reward for playing as many guests on the Prince Colorado, Adel, Vice-Chancellor of the Empire and brother of the Archbishop of Salzburg, in his letter to his wife, Mozart Mannheim, 23rd of October, mentioned that his meagre reward from the Elector of Mainz was only 15 Carolin, about 165 gulden. And he's moaning about that, when most of these eBayers, they actually pay me nothing.
They pay me nothing.
Yeah, so that's another reason why you're giving up, because...
You find you cannot afford to live, is that the point?
Oh, not at all. Not particularly afford to live. But you lose the inspiration to some extent, don't you, when you don't get the reimbursement for it. That, in fact, poor Mozart, in that invitation of the Elector of Mainz to perform at the post-banquet Academy given in his palace on the 21st of October, meant that Mozart was in fact going by boat down the river. People don't think of Mozart, do they, as anything much of a sailor. But in fact, he did come to England, as you know, and visited, I think, the Chelsea Hospital, now at Chelsea Hospital.